And now, the news. Next on the Atheist Viewpoint. Welcome to the Atheist Viewpoint. I'm Ron Barrier.
And I'm Dennis Horvitz.
And we're glad that you're here to join us this week. We're going to go over some news and tidbits that are going to be relevant, of course, for the not only the September 11th memorial thing, which is coming up in the United States, but looking at some of the presidential candidates for the elections. And if we carry over into the next show, some new surveys. So stay tuned for the next couple of shows, this one and the next after, and we'll discuss some new and relevant topics. And how you doing, Dennis?
Okay, we had a hurricane in New York. Not a hurricane. I'm sorry. We had an earthquake, and I was.
Oh yes.
I was completely oblivious to it.
Did you feel anything?
I didn't feel anything.
No, and I
and
didn't.
You know
feel
what?
Anything.
That's what my girlfriend said too. Okay, very good.
Yeah, no, I didn't feel anything either. And,
nothing like serious.
But nature, of course, is nothing to fool with. So you know, we're glad that the injuries were at a minimum. Damage wasn't so much down in the between Richmond, Virginia, and Washington D.C. They had a little more jostling than some of the rolling that I felt up here.
But I was on the internet earlier today, and there are people who are superstitious people who are blaming Obama for it. It's the wrath of God.
Well, you know,
I mean,
as soon as it happened, the whole mania of last days started, like, going through my brain. I'm going, oh, here we go.
You know, yeah, well, it was predictable.
These are the last days. You know, we've seen the signs.
It would almost have been disappointing, actually, in some ways.
You know, what's odd is that the scientific study of climate change and global warming probably actually plays into the hands of these eschatologists because with more increasingly intense storms and other things, they're gonna grab that as last days all the time.
Eschatologists never accuse anyone of being something they can't spell. Okay, it's a rule I go by.
Well, yeah, but I would hope that our audience is
well, of course, you know, we have the most erudite audience in all of television, so
yeah,
that's goes without saying.
So in a way, it's funny, but you know, as Ralph Cramden once said, one hand washes the other, and both hands wash the face. And apparently, this is the face of the end timers, where you have religion in one hand and science in the other.
There's going to be a field day.
Oh, I'm telling you. And you know, speaking of people looking at things and interpreting them as somehow intended events as composed by the chief choreographer, their God. That also brings us again into the field which always pops up all the time, and that is evolution.
Ah, yes.
And I think we're going to start off today's show with, of course, probably, I mean, most people know watching this program that already two of the Republican candidates, Michelle Bachmann and Rick Perry, are anti-science insofar as it clashes with their beliefs. However, anything of science that they could use to their advantage,
oh, of course,
they will do so.
Of course.
So, you know, then science is the way to go.
Well,
so,
but I mean, I think with the the fundamentalist populist camp, that's the modus operandi anyway. That's a standard operating procedure, is that when science, if they think science is going to bolster their position, then science this and the scientist said that and such and so and so. One common thing, and just generally, you know, I've seen it in discussions on the internet where they'll say, well, Isaac Newton was a believer, and Copernicus
Darwin's
was
deathbed conversion.
yeah. But the
everything.
thing is that, and they're absolutely right. There were some believers who Christians, particularly, who were brilliant people and made inestimable, in some cases, contributions to humanity. But almost in every case, they had to go against their own religion to do it.
To a point. I'm an avid fan of two shows on the Science Channel, and one of them was Wonders of the Solar System, and the other one is Wonders of the Universe with Brian Cox.
Yes.
And in one of the shows, the physics professor Brian Cox discusses gravity. And he mentions, of course, Sir Isaac Newton. And he gives him credit where credit is due.
Yes.
But he says he didn't go far enough.
Right.
And I think that's where they challenged their religion up to a point.
Right.
And they stopped.
Right.
Okay? So now you have the scientists picking up the mantle from that point and carrying it further without having the shackles of supernaturalism thrown around you. And they've taken it to go even further. And now we understand gravity even more. And yet, most people don't believe, and I use this very carefully, that gravity is a theory.
Right.
All right? Just like light is a theory.
Right. Well, they don't. I think there's most people are unaware that there's a difference between the colloquial use of the word theory, which what they really mean is hypothesis.
Yes.
And the actual scientific version of the word theory, in the same sense that the word apologetic, in reference to a philosophical position, is not the same thing as what we understand to be an apology between people.
You know, one time I had a debate against a creationist, and we talked about gravity, and I said, do you understand gravity? And he said, excuse me one second. He said, did you understand gravity? And he said, yes. I said, oh, please explain. He went like this. I said, that's not understanding gravity. That's seeing the effects of gravity.
Right.
But explain why, when I pick this up, it goes down. That they can't do.
Right.
Okay? And even scientists, we know about mass and gravity, but still, they don't know everything there is about gravity and how it exactly works. They know how it reacts with the other forces.
Right.
But we're still looking at what it is and what role does it really play.
And I think that creationists and other anti-science people use the fact that scientists don't know everything about all there is to know as an excuse to reject science when it conflicts with their superstition.
What I love is the high dudgeon of some of these creationists who tell scientists, well, you know, you weren't there when it happened. Well, neither were they. And neither were people who wrote the supernatural literature of 2,000 years ago. They weren't there.
Right.
And, you know, here's another thing. One time I appeared on Paul Lazane's TV show, and I was debating a bishop over stickers in science books. When that was the rage that they were putting stickers in science books that, you know, evolution is a controversial theory. No one was there. Blah 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 blah. And I suggested that the same stickers be placed in Bibles.
Yes.
Well, this Protestant bishop, I mean, his neck veins just were popping out all over the screen.
Sure.
He was so taken aback by that. And, you know, and I said, hey, what's fair is fair.
Right.
If no one was there at the beginning, your book gets the stickers, you know,
That's right.
and we go there. You know, but anyway, what does that have to do with anything? Well, that leads us to the current crop of politicians running for public office. You know, it is truly amazing that when a politician, a person runs for public office, okay, regardless of their background, that once they become elected to public office, they become like the old comedian Professor Irwin Corey, and they are experts on everything.
Well, they have to appear that way in any case.
Yeah, and they shouldn't. And, you know, and that goes to something you said back earlier, Dennis, that the politicians are playing down to their fundamentalist base. And if anybody has any concept of history whatsoever, we know that our founding fathers, in particular Thomas Jefferson, James Madison,
Right.
and I say Jefferson because he was a big advocate of public schools and an educated electorate, wanted to enlighten the general public and so that they can speak from a position of at least some knowledge, okay?
Right.
They never talked down to the early Americans.
Right.
They never talked down. Now we have a country where, in fact, politicians, rather than holding to a standard of intellectualism, or at least our education, talk down. And
because in politics, stupid works.
It does. It does. And if you've noticed, if you read and you follow all these things, you will see that the unintelligent politicians and a lot of the people who are anti-science have no knowledge of language.
Well,
and they make claims and statements that are just beyond the pale.
Well, the thing is, they make those claims and statements. I'm less convinced that they're stupid. I think they're geniuses compared to the people that vote for them.
Madeline Murray O'Hare once said that when you talk to your audience on the radio or television, you have to assume that they're of sixth grade. That's the level of intelligence of sixth graders. But not to impugn sixth graders, but that people older than sixth graders have not gotten beyond that point.
No, you're not impugning sixth graders at all. But you have politicians like Michelle Bachmann and Rick Perry. They've got nothing to gain by supporting science. Not in their constituency anywhere. For their constituency, they have nothing to gain.
And yet, all the modern technology that is now that these constituency, the Middle American people, which are more like, I guess, farmers and people who work more in rural areas, depend a lot on science to accomplish what they have to do.
Oh, it's inescapable.
Right.
It's inescapable.
But when it comes to something they don't understand, then obviously science doesn't understand either. In the USA Today, and this was August 18th, GOP presidential hopeful Rick Perry claimed that evolution is, quote, a theory with, quote, some gaps in it, unquote. Now, we agree, evolution is a theory. However, it's a testable theory, it's a growing theory, the body of evidence.
It is a theory and a fact.
Yes.
It is a fact, and that's what we're going back to what I said before is
evolution is a fact.
Evolution is an observed, tested fact.
And the theory is how far we can take it.
Right.
Whether our origins or
a scientific theory is something that is formulated after all the tests have been done and the evidence has been collected, and then you have enough to say it describes whatever it is, the process or the fact or whatever it is. It's
a sound theory.
It's a description. It is not evidence itself. It's a description based on the evidence.
It's
a conclusion.
It's been falsified. It's been peer-reviewed. Other scientists around the world have performed the same tests to verify the results. And every time something new comes up, like for instance DNA, when they apply that to evolutionary theory, it actually strengthens evolutionary theory. And speaking of DNA, just if I can get off the track for a second, Frick and Watson, of course, were the two men, and they were atheists, who discovered the DNA helix and broke it down.
The double helix,
The double helix. And now, it's just been in the news recently, here in the middle of August, late August, that DNA has been used to free so many people from jail.
Yes.
At least, I think, just under 200 people from death row who have been wrongly accused. The victims of emotionalism.
People who have been accused of rape.
Right, murder or whatever. And it is now I think, a very prime tool in interdiction with the police and the FBI and everything, because now they can track criminals through these, and how many cases are being solved now by DNA evidence. And who do we thank for that? When these families, when their loved ones are sprung from the court or from the jails and everything, they thank God. They shouldn't be thanking God. They should be thanking the two men who discovered DNA.
And the people that work in the labs.
And the people who work in the labs who have taken that information and applied it to forensics.
And DNA has also helped to convict the real people who really are guilty.
Yes,
so
exactly.
it works both ways.
Right, and it's being used in medical research also.
Right.
So, I mean, that, to me, DNA could be one of the greatest discoveries since the wheel.
Don't pray, use DNA.
That's right. So anyway, back to Mr. Perry. The Texas governor was responding in his thing of the theory is that the evolution is a theory with gaps in it, which of course we all know there are gaps. He was responding to a question from a little boy in New Hampshire who was prompted by his mother to ask the Republican candidate about the age of the earth and evolution. And Perry said, I hear your mom was asking about evolution. That's a theory that is out there, and it's got some gaps in it. It's out there. Perry then told the boy, in Texas, we teach both creationism and evolution. I figure you're smart enough to figure out which one is right. Here's a man running for the President of the United States who thinks that a little boy, or little boys in general, should be the arbiters of what and what is not science.
Right, right, right.
I mean, that's crazy. Why doesn't Perry just
Right.
you know what Rick Perry should do? Just hand the decision over to goats.
Yeah.
Because I think you'll probably get the same result, using goats to decide what and what is not good science.
I think the deception is very subtle because by saying, you decide, he's framing it in a way that it looks like the information on both sides is equal, when in fact
yes.
one is information and another is superstition.
Right, equal and to the uneducated who are listening to this, it
Right.
sort of like empowers them.
Yeah.
Oh, we can make decisions.
And he sounds fair too. I mean, it sounds like if you don't really know what the deal is, it sounds like, well, I'm offering both points of view. But science is not a democracy.
No.
The facts either show us a point in a certain direction or they don't.
Well, see, Michelle Bachmann doesn't understand that either because she feels that students should decide what's in their science class. And that's totally insane.
Well,
the students will be there then with hairspray and matches going, shh, that's science.
Well,
I mean, it is, but...
And what if Mrs. Wilson's seventh grade science class decides there's no God all of a sudden? Then I suspect that their ability to...
Well, again, that's a philosophical and theological question and doesn't even belong in a science class.
Exactly.
Science classes should be about science. Little boys and girls should not decide or make up their minds between creationism and evolution. There is nothing to, well, I was going to say there was nothing to make up, but I say, yes, there is. Creationism. Yeah. You can make that up. You can say anything. They're building a new ark in one of those crazy creationist parks now.
Yeah. What is it? Is it?
I don't know.
Who's Ken? Is it Ken Ham? No,
well, I think is that Ken Ham?
Hovind? I've forgotten which it is.
I think it's Ham. But anyway, Perry's statement, by the way, where he says, "quote We teach both creationism and evolution," was taken to task reported by the Texas Tribune that Perry is not quite right about what's taught in the state's public schools. David Bradley, a conservative member of the Texas Board of Education, told the Tribune that nothing prevents a teacher from talking about creationism, but, quote, it is not specifically in the Texas curriculum. So is he almost like saying, yeah, it does occur?
Well, I mean, that's what this is a term that I've heard used just recently. It's called the dog whistle. Wording it in that way kind of signals to the people who favor the teaching of creationism that it's going on, and at the same time not really admitting it. In a sense that the dog whistle can hear above the range of human hearing. So it's a message that goes out to the people who are targeted, while it seems fairly innocent on the
You know what bothers me about this, though, because even Mr. Bradley's comments that there's nothing to prevent them from doing it,
Yeah.
is that there are already thousands upon thousands of centers that do teach creationism. They're called churches.
Yes.
So if people want to learn about creationism, go to your church,
Right.
right? Go.
Well-
I mean, science is not taught in churches. Are churches compelled to say that creationism is just a theory,
Yeah.
and that evolution challenges it? So that's what I mean. Send your children to church if you want to learn about creationism. Send your child to school if you want to learn science.
Here's a if I'm going to read just a brief part. This is from an article by Michael Zimmerman, PhD, and the article is titled, "Is Rick Perry smarter than a fifth grader? Not when it comes to science." Right. And he says, for those of us who deeply care about science literacy and who work to create an appropriate and respectful understanding between science and religion, Rick Perry's entry into the Republican presidential race offers both good and bad news. On the positive side, Perry has decided not to run away from his past, with the exception of his position on vaccinations for the human papillomavirus. He is embracing rather than distancing himself from his previous record, making it very easy to recognize where he stands in what we've just discussed before.
No, I tell you, he's slick. He's a pro.
Slick. On the negative side, his past record clearly demonstrates both a dangerous misunderstanding of the nature of science and a willingness to jettison science when its conclusions are at odds with his politics.
Yes.
And I would add his religious politics.
Well, that's what we stated early on
Yeah.
in the show, very early. We said that, these politicians, when it comes up against their beliefs, they'll go lowbrow.
Yeah. Perry's stance on the theory of evolution is especially troubling and emblematic of his overall disdain for modern science. Simply put, Perry's position either represents willful ignorance of both science and the law, or demonstrates that he lacks basic knowledge that fifth graders should have.
So he has a disdain for science, except for when it comes for airplanes, cars, his home,
The internet. Television cameras.
I mean, just about everything. Everything around us here, this is all because of science.
Yeah. I mean, that's what kills me. You get on the internet in these discussions, these forums, and people getting on there, using their computers to put down science.
It's deliciously insane.
Yeah, it is insane, but it is extremely frightening.
Well,
and the fact that these people are getting traction at all.
It's disturbing. I mean, in the United States, creationism still has, or intelligent design, as they try to disguise it, still has a grip on quite a percentage of the population. What Rick Perry needs to learn quickly is that in 1987, there was a Louisiana law that required creation science to be taught in public schools. And the Supreme Court ruled that unconstitutional. And just about 2 or 3 years ago, and you can get the DVD, it's called Judgment Day, which was a recreation using the transcript of the Pennsylvania trial of the Dover school district.
Kitzmiller versus Dover, right?
Right. And if you watch that trial, the creationist intelligent design side, led by some of their big guys, including Michael Behe, were absolute flops in the courtroom, okay? Just destroyed. They offered nothing. Science piled it on with the evidence.
Literally piled it on. Literally piled it on.
Yes, and just killed them face to face. And the judge, who was a Christian,
and a Bush appointee,
noted in his decision that while his faith is one thing, he says, based on the evidence of this trial, these people had nothing. Now, the background of that trial was very interesting because the school board was a bunch of surreptitious backstabbers who were threatening people, trying to, threaten people, threaten the judge and his family. So this is a creationist intelligent design side. If they can't get their way, they will threaten you.
Well, there were people on the school board who threatened the minority members, the they were a numerical minority, because there were 2 or 3 people on the school board who didn't want this book introduced, who didn't want creation, intelligent design, and they were believing Christians themselves, and they were persecuted for standing up for science. Okay.
You know, it's odd. In a way, I almost believe in intelligent design because I believe that humans use their intelligence to design this religion, supernatural argument.
There is evidence of it. That is the real evidence of intelligent design.
Yeah, right.
We're going to get thrown out of here. We're getting the high sign.
Okay. Well, you know, the thing is, of course, and the governor doesn't believe in man-made warming. That's another story. Of course, we contribute. We exist. We're down to the last minute here of the Atheist Viewpoint. I'd like to remind you that this is American Atheists. Please go to our website at www.atheist.org. There you can subscribe to AA News. You could be a member of American Atheists and protect your right to freely think without boundaries. And one of these days, I'd like to get into a discussion about free will. I've been thinking about it lately and taking some notes. Maybe we'll do a show on it.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how I feel about it.
We'll talk about it. You know, right? So on behalf of Dennis Horvitz and myself, Ron Barrier, and from the American Atheist Organization, protecting your right to intellectual liberty, we say next time.
Bye-bye.